how important is the brand of the business in comparison to the brand of your people?
Ooh. So I don't think the two are separate. I think your people often are the brand of your business for a start. So they are your brand spokespeople. They are often, in the case of like particularly enigmatic chairmen, they are your brand icon. You know, they are the physical embodiment of a brand. And in particular, when we look at things like consultancy businesses or businesses where the value of the company goes up and down in the lift, or used to go up and down in the lift, it logs on at home these days. But in those cases, those personalities are the brand. They have to be able to execute it. They have to be walking the walk, talking the talk. And we should be furnishing them with the assets of the brand to live and breathe it. And I think for other B2B businesses that are less human-centered, they're producing more products, then in that case, the brand is very much more something where we need to bring some humanity to it in this ability to be useful, to be able to connect to why you would need them. Like I trust my consultants to explain why I need them, but actually when I look at maybe a software business, for example, or a shipping business, then I really need to understand how I'm going to solve problems within the insight within my own company to be able to really think of that brand first when I'm into a buying situation. The role of brand is to be easy to remember. And so in all of those cases, consistency is king.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, weren't we?
Yeah.
Which is one of the stats probably that alerted me to the B2B Marketing Institute, way back when, probably not that long after, because it was the lovely Andy Lambert, who also is definitely worth a follow, guys. If you
absolute legend.
Yeah, he's an absolute legend. His social media updates on LinkedIn are bloody brilliant. And this kind of dials into that consistency piece, is a stat that you guys, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, but you can correct me afterwards, is 95% of the people that you that are in your market to buy you, probably don't need to buy you on the day that you're trying to sell them something. So by showing up in a salesy way and just trying to push a sale on that one particular day and not having any ongoing marketing consistency, what you're doing is you're losing 95% of your audience because they don't need you on that day.
Yeah.
Whereas if you educate them and you continue to be consistent and show up talking about those need states and the problems that we know that they're, potentially having in that messy middle, like we said, they may not need you today. They may not need you next year.
Yeah.
They may not need you in 2 years, but in the third year, they might. So I think, again, in the world of B2B, and I can put hand on heart say this because I've had, not most of my clients now absolutely respect this, and I'm very careful about, the pre-sales amble that I have with them to make sure that they do understand this. And our clients today really, really do, is, there are some short-term wins that you can get, but if you're only ever focused on the short-termisms, you're missing the biggest part of the pie, because that 95% don't need you on that day.
Yeah. The data comes from the work of the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, and we did a partnership project with them called How B2B Brands Grow, where we actually tested the 95-5 rule with Professor John Dawes, who's Mr. 95-5 rule. It's brilliant. He's an amazing person, also great to follow. And I think what's really interesting about it as an insight is what we're talking to a lot of the time, especially with things like ABM and B2B, we're talking to people as they are evaluating a decision in the sort of 3 months of that decision. So per quarter, you're selling to one group of people, which is around 5%, goes up and down depending on the industry and the life cycle, the buying cycle of the industry. The 95% haven't made up a decision who they're ever going to buy from in the future, but they're in category. So they're already resonant. They're already highly attuned to hearing messages about the category that they're one day going to buy from, because they don't want to get fired. It's that easy. They want to be good at their job. They don't want to get fired. So they want to pick the right solutions in the future. So those people, they just need to know that you do that kind of thing. It's very much a brand audience, very much a brand message. But what's really interesting is how it affects the short term as well. Because that tipping point moment of being remembered, when people get into that hot spot of needing you, if they've been sort of preempted, if they've been preloaded with the right memories, think of your brand first. And it's really hard for your competitors to interrupt that buying period, that next 3 months. And that's why I think brand can be such a winner, because in that 3 months, if also they're evaluating a purchase, the brand work will still favour. The brand work will still come to your rescue because it's still part of the group evaluation of your company as well. The fame level of your brand that gives people confidence that the buyer has just made the right decision.
Yeah.
And I actually now think, and I think this is something that we're going to be looking at, probably we're talking about trends, but actually when we're looking much more long term into the long term future, when we look at things like end user confidence, when we look at business and buyer group confidence, which we've done a load of studies on as well, but actually when we're looking at that buying group audience in B2B, it's becoming really important. It's becoming actually the tipping point between, am I going to take the risk in going with this supplier versus I have full confidence that this is the supplier everyone's going to approve of. And that's a no-brainer decision. And as much as we'd love our buyers to be risk takers and go for the wacky choice that's going to make a massive business difference, a lot of the time, unless you reframe that business difference as missing out on something that everyone else agrees on, people are going to go with the safer option, which is the brand that's known best. So getting your brand fame right, I think, is really key.
Yeah, I love that you've said that, because so many people, and you see this on various different social media platforms, numbers don't matter, fame doesn't matter. It absolutely does. It really does. At the end when you're making that decision, because and this is why I am so consistent on LinkedIn, and why I really push our marketing team to continue to create, fun, interesting, helpful content from the Street brand, and also for this podcast, is because I know that when I walk into a room and I'm pitching up against two or three other B2B marketing agencies for, I don't know, lead gen event campaign for whatever tech company we're pitching to, we're 3-4 steps ahead of them because they're quiet.
Yeah.
No one knows who they are. They don't trust them. They don't have any prior relationship. Whereas I go into the room and people have been engaging with our content for X amount of time. They already think that they know me and they trust me before I've even ever met them. And that gives me such an advantage. And it's probably why we have, compared to most companies, a much higher opportunity to win ratio. We probably convert 60 to 70% of our deals, probably even higher than that at the moment. And often we don't even pitch up against anyone because no one's talking about the exact same things as us. So I think it's so important. People think, no, it doesn't matter, or it's not delivering for me. Not only does it attract and bring people into the funnel for you, but it gives you a huge advantage when you're at the end of that funnel and you're trying to convert the deal.
And it's really interesting how, so we cover quite a lot of this in how B2B brands grow, and the advantage of being the biggest player in the category or the loudest voice in the category. You don't have to actually be the biggest, you have to look like the biggest.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Which is scary. But I think the other thing that I find really interesting is when we start to measure it. So when we start to measure the effects of being a bigger brand or being a louder brand, having that excess share of voice, that means that you're growing your presence in the category. What we can also see is the effects that it has across different parts of the business. So it's not just affecting the marketing results of people's responses to your advertising, but as you're finding it, it affects your sales results as well. And then weirdly, because we're LinkedIn and we can see the data, we could also see it affects your talent results as well. So you can actually attract much more valuable talent to your company because you're a bigger brand, and so you feel like more of a sort of tick on the CV. And I think that's so interesting, because when we're measuring that and reporting into the finance department, those extra ticks that feel very nice on a sort of marketing balance sheet or a dashboard become financially really, really valuable. Speed of sale, friction of sale being improved saves sales time that can then be reallocated elsewhere to get more sales in the future, or have a less exhausted sales force, which means they're much nicer people to talk to and they're more effective as salespeople. It increases enthusiasm in the business. Your people must walk into every pitch, like literally strutting their stuff. That completely changes, that attitude completely changes how they're going to be perceived. That confidence of walking in from a company that everyone has heard of really changes the body language of the company. And then also when we're looking at just the money that's saved on talent, the money that's saved on not having to replace people because they've been attracted by a bigger brand, like that is absolute literal, it's gold. It's the cash that, the finance director stays up at night over. And more and more our research and our measurement is focused on how do we show the rest of the business the value that marketing brings. Because as a cheerleader for marketers, which I definitely would say is probably top of my job description, is cheerleading for really good marketing and marketers and their careers, then a huge part of really being able to measure and prove that effectiveness, well, it gets me out of bed in the morning, but it also is the sort of thing that means that marketers have a longer tenure and more time to prove themselves. Give them the chance of the 95%, give them the chance of the 3-year sales cycle that we have in B2B. Don't imagine that in the next 3 months there's going to be a miracle, because there's not. That's beholden. If there is a miracle, it will be a miracle in the economy, in the context of where we're marketing, possibly even in the category in which we're marketing. That's where you see the 3-month trajectory. But as far as share and the business is concerned, that's a long play game. And so marketers need to be given the longer time to be able to make that impact.